I remember the moment she walked into my courtroom. You develop instincts after years on the bench, sharp instincts, and mine. They don't miss. She didn't just walk in. She made an entrance. Designer heels clicking like she owned the floor, sunglasses still on indoors, a handbag that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, and that look. That smirk. I've seen that look before. It's the look of someone who thinks rules are optional. I sat down, adjusted my glasses, and looked straight at her. I assume you're the defendant. She didn't answer immediately. She took her time, slowly removing her sunglasses like this was a movie scene. Yes, she said, almost bored. That would be me. I paused, not because I was impressed, because I already knew this was going to be a problem. Take your seat, I told her. She dropped into the chair like she was doing me a favor. That's when I glanced at the plaintiff. And just like that, the tone of the entire case shifted, because on the other side of that courtroom was a man who looked like life had hit him hard, worn-out jacket, nervous hands, eyes that hadn't slept properly in days. I've seen pain before, real pain, and I knew right then this wasn't going to be some petty argument. All right, I said, let's not waste time. Sir, you're suing for damages. Start talking. He cleared his throat, his voice shaky. She crashed into my car, Your Honor, and then she just left. I turned my head slowly toward her. Is that true? She let out a small laugh. A crash is a bit dramatic, she said. It was barely a scratch. I raised my hand. Stop, she blinked. I didn't ask for commentary. I asked for an answer. She rolled her eyes. Yes, she actually rolled her eyes, right there, in my courtroom. That's when I leaned forward. Let me make something very clear, I said. This is not your living room. You don't roll your eyes at me. You answer the question for a split second. She looked surprised, but only for a split second. Then the attitude came right back. I didn't think it was serious enough to stay, she said, and I had somewhere important to be. I sat back. Of course you did. Important enough to ignore the law? I asked. She shrugged. I have a driver for a reason. I don't usually deal with things like this. I looked at her, really looked at her, and in that moment I knew exactly who I was dealing with. I looked at her and I knew. This wasn't just about a car accident. This was about entitlement. I turned back to the plaintiff. Did she leave the scene without exchanging information? Yes, Your Honor. I tried to stop her, but she just got back in her car and drove off. I nodded slowly. Then I looked back at her. Do you understand what that means? She crossed her arms. It means he's exaggerating. I slammed my pen down lightly. No, it means you may have committed a hit and run that got her attention. Finally, she sat up straighter. Well, that's not how I see it. I don't care how you see it, I said sharply. I care about facts. The courtroom went quiet. You could feel it. That tension, that shift. And then something interesting happened. The plaintiff reached into his folder. Your Honor, there's something else. I raised an eyebrow. I'm listening. He hesitated. Then he said something that made even me pause. There's video. I turned my head slowly toward her, and for the first time since she walked in, that confident smile, it slipped just a little. I leaned back in my chair. And then I asked the bailiff to play the video. And what happened next? Even I didn't see it coming. I don't like surprises in my courtroom, but I do appreciate evidence. I looked at the bailiff. Hold that video for a moment, I said. I want to hear her version first, because here's the thing, people who lie, they always hang themselves with their own words. I turned back to her. Let's try this again, I said calmly. You said it was barely a scratch. You said you had somewhere important to be. So tell me in your own words exactly what happened. She flipped her hair back like she was on a runway, not in a courtroom. I was leaving a private event, she began. There was traffic, people everywhere. It was chaotic. His car was parked badly, honestly. It shouldn't have even been there. I raised my hand. Stop, already blaming the victim. That didn't take long. She sighed dramatically. I'm just telling the truth. No, I said. You're telling your version. I want facts. She leaned back, crossing her legs. Fine. I tapped his car, lightly. Nothing major. There was no reason to make a scene. I looked at the plaintiff. Was your car tapped lightly? He shook his head immediately. No, Your Honor. The entire rear side is dented. The door won't even open properly anymore. I turned back to her. Did you get out of the vehicle? She hesitated for a moment. Did you speak to him? I don't recall exactly. I leaned forward. You don't recall? That's convenient. She shrugged again. It wasn't memorable. I paused. Then I said it slowly. It was memorable enough for him to file a lawsuit. The courtroom got quiet again. She shifted slightly in her seat, just slightly. But I saw it. Pressure. Good. I turned back to the plaintiff. Tell me what happened after the impact. He took a breath. I got out of my car. I went up to her. I asked if she was okay. She didn't even look at me properly. She just said, "This isn't my problem," got back into her car, and drove off. I turned my head toward her. Did you say that? She smirked. I might have said something like that. I don't remember the exact wording. I tilted my head. You might have? You either did or you didn't. She rolled her eyes again. I don't think the exact words matter. I leaned in. They matter a lot. Words reflect intent. And right now your intent is not looking very good. She opened her mouth to respond. Don't interrupt me, I said sharply. She closed it. Good. I sat back. Let me explain something to you, I said. When you're involved in an accident, you don't get to decide whether it's serious. You stop, you exchange information. That's the law, not a suggestion, not optional. She gave a small laugh. I think we're blowing this out of proportion. I stared at her. Are you serious? She didn't answer. I turned to the plaintiff again. Did you attempt to get her information? Yes, Your Honor. I even knocked on her window when she got back in the car. She ignored me. And then? She just drove off, like I didn't exist. That hit. You could hear it in his voice. That wasn't just about a car. That was about being dismissed. Like he didn't matter. I looked back at her. You understand why you're here? She shrugged. Because he's upset. I shook my head slowly. No, you're here because you think accountability is beneath you. That landed hard. She shifted again. This time more noticeably. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then I said, all right, now we're going to talk about that video. Her expression changed, just slightly, but I caught it. You said it was a light tap. You said it wasn't serious. You said you don't remember the conversation. I leaned forward. Let's see how your memory holds up. I turned to the bailiff. Play it. The screen lit up. Black and white footage. Parking lot. Cars lined up. And then, her car entered the frame. I watched closely, very closely, and within seconds. I knew this wasn't a light tap, not even close. I didn't say anything yet. I just kept watching, because sometimes silence is louder than any words I could use, and next to me I could feel it, her confidence. It was starting to crack, but that wasn't the worst part, not even close. I've watched thousands of cases unfold in front of me, but there's a very specific moment. I always look for the moment when someone realizes their story is about to fall apart. That moment. It was happening right in front of me. The footage continued. Her car didn't tap anything. It didn't brush past. It slammed into his parked vehicle with enough force to rock it sideways. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. The entire courtroom saw it. I slowly turned my head toward her. Light tap? I said. She didn't answer. Is that what you call that? She shifted in her seat. It looks worse on camera, she muttered. I blinked. No, I said. It looks exactly like what it is. I pointed at the screen. That is not minor. That is not insignificant. That is impact. She crossed her arms again, but this time, it wasn't confidence. It was defense. I leaned back. Let's keep watching. The video rolled. The plaintiff's car door opened. He stepped out just like he said. He walked toward her vehicle. He didn't look aggressive. He didn't look angry. He looked concerned. He knocked on her window. I glanced at her. You said you didn't recall the interaction. She didn't respond. On the screen, she rolled her window down slightly. The audio kicked in, clear enough. What do you want? Her voice said. The courtroom shifted. You could feel it. I looked at her again. Does that refresh your memory? She looked straight ahead, silent. The video continued. I think you hit my car, the plaintiff said calmly, and then her voice again. That's not my problem. I stopped the video, right there. I didn't rush. I let those words sit in the room. Then I turned to her. You might have said something like that? I asked. Silence. I leaned forward. No, you said it, exactly. And you said it on camera. She finally spoke. I was frustrated. I raised an eyebrow. Frustration is not a legal defense. She exhaled sharply. You don't understand the situation. I understand it perfectly. I cut in. You hit his car. He approached you calmly, and you dismissed him. I tapped my pen lightly on the desk, and then you left. She shook her head. I didn't think it was necessary to stay. I stared at her. That's because you don't think rules apply to you. That hit. I could see it. Her jaw tightened. But she didn't argue. Not this time. I turned back to the screen. Let's continue. The footage resumed. The plaintiff stepped back as her window rolled up. He tried to say something else, but she didn't respond. Her car moved, and just like that, she drove away. No hesitation, no attempt to exchange information, nothing. I paused the video again. The courtroom was completely silent now. I folded my hands. This isn't a misunderstanding, I said. This is a clear decision. I looked at her. You made a choice, and it was the wrong one. She swallowed. But then just when I thought she might finally accept reality, she said something that surprised even me. He shouldn't have been parked there. I blinked. Excuse me? He was partially over the line. If he had parked properly, this wouldn't have happened. I leaned back slowly. There it was. Deflection. Classic. I nodded once. All right, I said. Now we're shifting blame. She sat up straighter, gaining a bit of that old attitude back. I'm just pointing out facts. No, I said calmly. You're trying to avoid responsibility. I turned to the plaintiff. Do you have anything regarding the parking position? He nodded quickly. Yes, Your Honor, I do. He reached into his folder again, and this time, he pulled out photos. Multiple angles, clear, detailed. I gestured for him to approach. Bring them here, as I looked down at those images. I felt something shift again, because if these photos showed what I suspected, then her last excuse was about to disappear. I placed the photos on the bench, looked at them carefully. Then I looked back up at her, and I said quietly, you just made this a lot worse for yourself. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. When someone keeps talking instead of thinking, they usually dig themselves into a hole they can't climb out of. She had just handed me a shovel. I picked up the first photo, clear angle, daylight, parking lines visible. His car, perfectly within the space. I picked up the second one, different angle, same result. I didn't rush. I took my time, flipping through each image like I had all the patience in the world, because pressure isn't about speed, it's about silence. Finally, I looked up at her. You said he was parked badly. She nodded a little too quickly. Yes, that's what I saw. I held up the photo. Then I suggest you take a better look. I angled it so she could see. Her eyes moved over the image. And just like that, I saw it, that flicker, doubt. Gone was the smug confidence. Now she was calculating, trying to find a way out. I set the photo down. Would you like to revise your statement? I asked. She hesitated. Maybe it looks different here. I leaned forward. Different? It's a photograph, not an illusion. A few people in the courtroom shifted. No one spoke. No one dared. She crossed her arms again, but this time it felt smaller, less powerful. I still think the situation is being exaggerated, she said. I nodded slowly. Of course you do. I tapped the photos, because if you admit the truth, then everything else falls apart. She didn't respond. I turned to the plaintiff. Tell me about the damage. His voice was steadier now, but there was something underneath it. Frustration, exhaustion. It's not just the dent, Your Honor. The frame is slightly bent. The door doesn't open right. I use that car for work. I've been borrowing rides just to get by. I looked back at her. Did you hear that? She shrugged. Cars can be fixed. I froze for a second. Then I leaned in. And how do you suggest he pays for that repair? With good intentions? She didn't answer. Or maybe, I continued, you think it's not your responsibility. I didn't say that, she snapped. You didn't have to, I shot back. Your actions said it for you. That landed. Hard. She shifted again, her posture tightening. I could see the frustration building now. Good. Because frustration leads to mistakes. And I was waiting for the next one. I picked up the photos again, stacking them neatly. Everything so far points in one direction, I said. You caused the damage, you dismissed the victim, and you left the scene. She leaned forward suddenly. You're only hearing his side. I raised an eyebrow. Am I? She pointed toward the screen. That video doesn't show everything. I paused. Now that was interesting. I tilted my head slightly. Go on. There were other people there, she said. It was crowded, loud. You don't know what happened before that. I sat back. Are you suggesting there are witnesses? She nodded. Yes, I let the silence hang for a moment. Then I said, very calmly, do you have them here? She hesitated. No. But I raised my hand. Then don't waste my time with imaginary support. Her face tightened. They're real. Then where are they? I asked. She didn't answer. Exactly. I turned to the plaintiff. Do you have any witnesses? He nodded again. Yes, Your Honor. One of them couldn't come. But they sent something. I leaned forward slightly. What kind of something? He swallowed. An audio recording. The room shifted again. You could feel it. Another layer. Another crack forming. I turned slowly toward her, and this time, there was no confidence left in her face, just tension, pure tension. I folded my hands. An audio recording, I repeated. Then I looked at the bailiff. We're going to hear that. I turned back to her. You said the video doesn't show everything. I paused. Let's find out what the audio does. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say something, but nothing came out. Good. Because whatever was on that recording, I had a feeling it wasn't going to help her, not even a little, and as the bailiff prepared to play it, I looked at her one more time and said, you better hope this supports your story. Then I faced forward, and in that moment I already knew it wouldn't. I've seen people hold it together for a long time in my courtroom, smile through lies, sit straight like nothing can touch them, but pressure does something very specific. It finds the weakest point and pushes. This was that moment. I nodded to the bailiff. Play the recording. The room went completely still. No movement, no whispers. Just that low hum of anticipation. Then the audio started. Background noise, first cars, faint voices, a door shutting somewhere in the distance, and then her voice, sharp, irritated. Are you serious right now? It's just a car. I didn't look at the screen. I looked at her because I wanted to see her reaction, not hear her excuses. The recording continued. The plaintiff's voice came in calm, controlled. I just need your information. That's all. Then her again. I don't have time for this. Do you know who you're talking to? That line? It changed everything. I saw a few heads in the courtroom shift. Even the bailiff glanced up, but I stayed still because I've heard that line before, and it never ends well for the person who says it. The recording went on. I don't care who you are, the plaintiff replied. You hit my car. Then a pause. And then, her voice colder now. Talk to my lawyer if it's that important. A card or slammed engine started, and the recording cut. Silence, heavy silence. I let it sit. I didn't rush to speak. I didn't need to. That audio said more than anything she had tried to argue. Finally, I leaned forward. Do you recognize your voice? She swallowed. Yes, good, I said, because I recognize your attitude. She looked down for a moment, just a moment. That was new. I tapped my pen lightly. You asked him if he knew who he was talking to. I paused. So let me answer that for you. I leaned in, my voice sharper now. He was talking to someone who broke the law and thought her name would protect her. She didn't respond, not this time. I turned to the plaintiff. How has this affected you? He took a breath, and I could see it in his face. This wasn't just about damage anymore. It's been weeks, Your Honor, he said. I've missed work. I had to borrow money to even get a temporary fix. I tried reaching out through the number I got later, but no one responded. I glanced at her. You ignored him? She shook her head slightly. My assistant handles those things. I froze. Then I leaned back slowly. Your assistant. She nodded. Yes. I let out a small breath. Let me explain something to you very clearly, I said. When you hit someone's car, you don't assign responsibility to your assistant. You handle it. She shifted uncomfortably. I was busy. I cut her off immediately. I don't care. Silence. Pure silence, because that's the truth. I don't care how busy you think you are. The law doesn't adjust itself to your schedule. I looked back at the plaintiff. Do you have documentation of repair estimates? He nodded quickly and handed over papers. I reviewed them. Not minor, not cheap. Exactly what I expected after seeing that impact. I placed them down and looked at her again. This is the cost of your light tap. She glanced at the papers, then looked away. I still think it's excessive. I tilted my head. You think wrong. She exhaled sharply, frustration bubbling up again. This whole thing is ridiculous. That was it. I leaned forward, my own cutting straight through the room. No, what's ridiculous is your refusal to accept responsibility. She went quiet, completely. And that's when I saw it. Not arrogance. Not attitude. Something else. Cracks, real cracks, because for the first time since she walked in, she didn't have a comeback. I folded my hands. We're getting very close to a decision, I said. Her eyes lifted slightly. Hope? Maybe, but she was about to learn something important. I wasn't finished. Not yet, because there was still one piece missing, one final confirmation. And I turned to the plaintiff and asked, "Is there anything else I should see before I rule?" He hesitated. Then he nodded slowly. "Yes, Your Honor." He reached into his folder one last time, and what he pulled out next made even me pause, because this wasn't just evidence. This was the end of her story, and I looked at her and said quietly, "You better start telling the truth, because whatever this is, it's going to finish it." I've learned something over the years: people can lie with confidence, with attitude, even with a straight face. But when the last piece of truth walks into the room, it doesn't knock, it kicks the door open. I looked at the plaintiff. "Go ahead," I said. "Show me." He stepped forward, slower this time, careful, like he understood the weight of what he was holding. He handed me a printed document and a small flash drive. I raised an eyebrow. "What is this?" He cleared his throat. "Your Honor, after the accident I couldn't reach her, so I filed a report with my insurance company. They conducted their own investigation." I nodded. "Continue." "They tracked her vehicle through nearby traffic cameras," he said. "And they also got a statement." I looked up. "A statement from who?" He hesitated for half a second. "Her driver. That got my attention." I turned slowly toward her. "You said you have a driver." She stiffened. "Yes. But he wasn't there that night." I didn't respond right away. I just held up the document, according to this. He was silence. The kind of silence that doesn't move. I opened the file and began reading carefully, line by line. And as I read, the picture became very clear. I looked up. "Your driver states that he arrived shortly after the incident, that you called him, that he advised you to stay and handle the situation properly." She didn't say anything. I continued. "He also states that you refused." I placed the document down. "Is that incorrect?" Her lips parted. I don't remember it like that." I leaned forward immediately. "No, that's not how this works." My voice cut through the room. "You don't get to not remember when someone else has documented it." She swallowed. I was stressed. I shook my head. "You were arrogant." That landed hard. I could see it. That was the word she didn't want to hear, but it was the right one. I picked up the flash drive. "What's on this?" The plaintiff answered. The recorded call between her and the driver. He kept it. I paused. Then I looked at the bailiff. "Play it." The audio started, clearer than the last one. No background noise this time, just two voices. Her voice came first, annoyed, impatient. "I already told you, it's handled." Then a second voice, calm, professional. "Ma'am, need to go back. You can't leave the scene like that." I watched her. Her eyes dropped. "Good." The audio continued. "It's a minor issue," she said. "I'll have someone deal with it." "Ma'am," the driver insisted, "this can turn into a legal problem." Then her voice again, colder now. I said, "I'll deal with it. Don't tell me what to do." The recording ended. Silence. Heavy. Final. I didn't speak for a few seconds. I didn't need to. Everything that needed to be said was already said. Then I leaned forward. "This wasn't confusion," I said. "This wasn't a mistake." I looked directly at her. This was a choice. She didn't argue. She couldn't. Because now, there was nothing left to hide behind. No story, no excuse, no attitude, just facts. I folded my hands. "You were told what to do. You ignored it. You left. You dismissed the victim. And then you avoided responsibility." Her shoulders dropped slightly. That was it. That was the moment. The complete collapse. I've seen it many times, but it never looks the same. For her, it looked like silence. I let it sit for just a second longer. Then, I said, "I'm ready to make my decision." Her head lifted slightly. But I wasn't finished. Not yet. Because before I rule, I always make one thing clear. I leaned forward, my voice firm, precise. "Money doesn't buy you a pass in my courtroom." I paused. "It buys you better lawyers." "That's it." She closed her eyes briefly. I continued. "You thought you could walk away from this. You thought it wasn't your problem." I shook my head. "Well, now it is." I sat back. And the entire room held its breath, because they all knew what came next. was final. I've never believed in dragging things out when the truth is already sitting right in front of me, and in this case, the truth didn't just sit, it stood up, spoke, and made itself impossible to ignore. I adjusted my papers, looked straight ahead, and then at her. Stand up. She hesitated for half a second, then slowly rose to her feet. No attitude this time. No smirk. Just silence. Good. That's how it should be when reality finally catches up with you. I folded my hands and began. Based on the evidence presented, the video footage, the audio recording, the photographic proof, and the statement from your own driver, this court finds you fully responsible for the damage caused to the plaintiff's vehicle. I paused just long enough for it to sink in. You left the scene of an accident. You refused to provide information. You dismissed the victim, and you attempted to minimize your actions in this courtroom. Her eyes dropped. I continued. Judgment is for the plaintiff. A quiet ripple moved through the room. But I wasn't done. Damages in the amount of full repair costs, plus additional compensation for loss of use and financial hardship. I tapped the papers. You will pay every dollar. She nodded faintly, still quiet. But then I leaned forward and my tone changed, because sometimes a verdict isn't enough. Sometimes a lesson needs to be delivered. You walked into this courtroom thinking your status mattered, I said. That your name, your money, your lifestyle would somehow place you above the law. I shook my head slowly. It doesn't. I pointed lightly toward the plaintiff. That man stood here, asked for basic accountability, and you treated him like he didn't exist. I paused. Let me make something very clear. You don't get to decide who matters. The room was completely still. No movement, no sound, just truth. And the moment you said, "Do you know who you're talking to?" You told me everything I needed to know about you. Her jaw tightened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. She couldn't. Because in my courtroom, I continued, that question has only one answer. I leaned in. You're talking to the law. Silence. Then I sat back. Case closed. I struck the gavel that should have been the end of it. But it wasn't, because just as she started to turn away, the bailiff stepped forward. Your Honor, he said quietly. I looked up. Yes. He handed me a small note. I read it. And for the first time in this entire case, I raised an eyebrow. Interesting. Very interesting. I looked back at her. Stay where you are. She froze, slowly turned back around. What now? She asked, her voice barely steady. I held up the note. It appears there's an outstanding citation connected to this incident. Her face changed instantly. Confusion, then concern. I continued, for leaving the scene of an accident. Silence hit the room again, but this time heavier. This court handles civil matters, I said. But that is a separate issue. She shook her head slightly. I raised my hand. Don't. She stopped. According to this, I said, glancing at the note, the report was filed, and it's being reviewed for further action. Her composure cracked completely. Wait, what does that mean? I looked at her, calm as ever. It means this isn't over for you. That landed harder than anything I had said all day, because money can solve a lot of problems, but it doesn't erase consequences. I placed the note down. You're free to go, but I suggest you start taking things seriously. She didn't move for a second, then slowly. She turned and walked out. No heels clicking with confidence this time, just quiet steps, the kind that follow you when reality sets in. I watched her leave. Then I looked back at the camera. Let me tell you something, I said. It doesn't matter who you are, where you come from, or how much money you have. I paused. If you think you're above basic responsibility, life will correct you. I leaned slightly forward, and it won't be gentle. I gave a small nod. Subscribe for more courtroom stories. And next time you see an accident, I paused just long enough. Stop. That's common sense.